Okay, continuing on with the terrain patch. Now, what are we going to get in place in this video, Lee?
Well, this is going to be kind of interesting because I had mentioned in the last video that our TerrainPatch interfaces with a lot of different parts of our system, like
Right.
the train manager, the vertex class, the vertex cache class, a patch builder class, and all of these we haven't built yet. So we don't have these classes, so we can't interface with it. So what we're going to be doing is kind of taking the train patch and piecemealing it together as these other systems come online. So what we're going to do is in this video is get the TerrainPatch constructor in place, and then we're going to get the initial part of the SetupMesh method in place, which is the one that's going to go looking at our object pool to see if there's anything that we can reuse, and then reuse it if it is available, or generate a new one if it isn't. So let's start with the constructor. So this is going to be a train patch. And inside of it, I do want to take in some arguments. First one being a vector3, which will hold our position. And we want to assign a priority. So I'm going to get a Q priority, and I'll call this priority. Now we'll set our position equal to position. We'll set priority equal to priority. And we will then call a method called SetupMesh. Of course, we don't have that method yet, but I can use ReSharper to create it for me. Go ahead and get rid of the exception. Now, inside of SetupMesh, we have already set up a property called mesh to, not that mesh, the other mesh. All right, so now we've got mesh. Now, this mesh, I want to basically use a mesh in our object pool if it's available, or I'm going to create a new one if it's not. So to do this, I'm going to use a null coalescing operator. So we'll simply call my object pool. We'll say check out a terrain mesh, and if it exists, I'm going to cast it as a terrain mesh, which will get assigned into our mesh property. But if one doesn't exist, use the null coalescing operator to create not null. That's what you talk one thing and type it by mistake. That's lovely. So, but if what we get returned is null, go ahead and create a new terrain mesh. It's as simple as that. Now, once we've gotten this mesh back, I still want to do some more work, because what we've gotten from this is going to be a flat, non-detailed mesh. It's just perfectly the way it came from our terrain mesh. Or if it was one that was reused, it's going to look just like it was when we put it into the object pool. So what we need to do is skeleton in a couple more methods that are going to get our vertex data. So get vertex data, and we're going to have another method called set mesh details. And then once we've run through both of those operations, we're going to tell the mesh to update itself. You already know what I want to say, so I won't say it. I won't say it twice. So then we're going to tell the mesh to update itself, and we're going to pass in the world position. We don't want to send in the regular position because this is based off of the number of patches. So if this patch was sent in a position of 0, 0, the patch is going to be at the world origin. But if I send in a position of, say, 1 in X and 0 in Z, our patch is still considered 1, 0, but we want our mesh to draw based off of one full mesh to the right. So that's where the world position comes in, which is where we take our mesh's position and then we multiply that by our size -1 and our vertex spacing. Now let's go ahead and we'll skeleton in these so we get rid of those errors. And I want to reverse the order of these. And I'll get rid of the throwing the exceptions. And then what we'll do in the next video is we'll start looking at the vertex data. And I'll fix the spelling on that while I'm at it. But in the next video, we'll come in, we'll code in the functionality of the vertex data, and there's a couple of other helper methods that we'll have to create so we can get that vertex information.
Okay, very cool. Well, with that, that is going to wrap up this video. Thanks a lot.